Before that, we heard I Am Rescued with Run It Up. It's DJ here on the telly, and I'm very excited because we're trying something brand new here this morning. And let's just hope all the rubber bands and scotch tape hold together now as we're trying to do this. On the phone with me, I've got the wonderful Evelyn RAE from Cauldron Pool. Evelyn, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh!
We have made it.
And we can hear you as well. Fantastic, fantastic. Evelyn, let me just say massive thank you to be willing to do this on a, what I like to call this experimental new Christian radio station. You didn't even think about it. You said, yeah, I'm totally up for it. Let's go.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love supporting Christians who are out there and who are unapologetically Christian at what they do. So thank you so much.
All right. Now, it's great. We've got a funny mix of people listening this morning. We've got a handful of Evelyn fans. We've got the Evelyn fans out there who are big supporters of yourself in Cauldron Pool. And then we've got a bunch of people listening who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Who's an Evelyn and what's a Cauldron Pool? So I thought we could start right at the beginning and get to know you a little bit, and what makes you tick. So give us your story. Where did you grow up? What's been your life's work up until now? Tell us your story.
Well, I still think I'm growing up. I have a little bit of growing up to do. I'm not that old yet. But I grew up in Australia, obviously, considering the Bogan accent. But yeah, so I grew up over here. I grew up with a Christian family, going to church and, going to a Christian school, quite sheltered. And then I turned 18 and decided that I would like to become a police officer.
Oh, wow.
So I joined the police at the fresh young age of 18, and I served for close to 12 years. I became a detective. I worked lots of different avenues in the police, specialised in child abuse and sex crimes and organised crime.
Whoa.
And I did that for about 12 years, and I resigned in 2020. And I started writing and kind of using my interests and the fact that I no longer had a gag order, because when you're employed by the police, you're not allowed to publicly speak about things with politics or religion or society, culture. So once I finally resigned, I decided to put those efforts into writing and commentating, in the political, cultural, Christianity sort of spectrum, and I'm doing that through Cauldron Pool.
Wow. Okay, got a couple of questions here straight away. What does a nice Christian girl like yourself, how do you end up working for the police force in some of the darkest areas that the police do?
Yeah, look, I think my motivation when I joined was probably different to what kept me in the police. So I think I joined maybe to annoy my parents. I'm not sure. My dad isn't a police officer, but he's served in some capacity. I'll just leave it at that. And so when he told me he didn't want me doing what he was doing, I decided, well, I'll do this, which was probably worse for my poor parents. But, I'd like to think and I'd like to hope that I joined for the right reasons. I wanted to make a difference. I've always been interested in criminology, like the mind of criminals and things like that. So I kind of branched off, I guess, and that's why I specialised and became a detective, because I was more interested in those types of crimes as opposed to reactive things. But look, I can't, I haven't always been as strong in my faith as I am now. I was very young and foolish, like we all were. I got swept up in this policing world, which, as you mentioned, it's the depths of evil. And I have seen and experienced some of the most horrific things that I think any person should have to experience. And especially as an 18-year-old who did grow up as a Christian, in a Christian school, quite sheltered, it was a bit of a shock. And I think that's what actually did bring me closer to the Lord in my early 20s, going through everything that I did, the things that I saw and witnessed. You can't go through that and not seek your Creator. You can't go through that and not turn to, the ultimate authority, which is Christ. And, so I kind of came closer and made the decision about my faith on my own without it just being, my parents are a Christian, so I am. I probably did that in my early 20s. And, haven't looked back since.
Isn't it fascinating? And so many people have got testimonies like this where you do something in a bit of rebellion, even if it's rebellion a little bit in your parents, and you end up going down a pathway, and waiting at the end of the pathway there for us is God, saying, all right, are you done yet? You're going to come back to us. So you had that sort of moment. So and again, I don't want to pry or anything like that, but I want to get to know. We all want to get to know you a little bit. And again, we don't want to dox you or anything like this. Where, roughly, where are you based? Are you married? What's your day-to-day life look like now?
Yeah, look, I am out in country in New South Wales, and I spend most of my time out here trying to escape human beings. I've seen the worst of them, and I just want peace and quiet. So, I'm just sort of out here in the country, just living the quiet life. It's hard work. Country life is hard work, but it is beautiful. I'm amongst God's creation and things like that. Here, with my family doing the farming things and absolutely loving it. And on the side, when I get a spare moment, if something interests me or something outrages me, or I feel the need that I can use my unique sort of background to have a unique perspective on a particular matter that might be happening in society, I kind of speak out about it. And I've been given such an opportunity to have my work published on Cauldron Pool, and a few other news outlets have very graciously allowed a Christian on mainstream media to sort of have a voice as well, which again I'm very, very grateful for. I think it's important to have Christians out in the secular society offering a Christian perspective and voice. So that's a little bit of my life. Not very exciting now, but I love it.
It sounds exciting to us. Let's take a quick break, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is there, as we get to know you a little bit more, Evelyn, and what makes you tick, we're always after something interesting when it comes to Christian music, something a little bit different. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. You can go with whatever you want, but is there something that you've been listening to that you want to recommend to all of us?
Absolutely. So there is this beautiful South African Christian lady. Her name is Ava, and this is her first album that she has released. And the song that I love, which I think everybody else will love as well, is called Waves. Now, her entire album is incredible, and I sound like I'm trying to sell it, but honestly, it's changed my life.
Wow.
If you listen to the album from start to finish, you can hear the emotion. You can hear just like her love of God. And honestly, you'll sit there and listen to it and you'll be better off by the time you finish the album. But that's something I've been listening to and I love. And I think you guys hopefully will love it as well.
Look, it sounds like you're auditioning for a radio DJ spot here on the telly. I'm loving it, Evelyn. This is great. Let's have a listen.
Good.
Let's have a listen to it now. This is Waves by, am I pronouncing right, Ava?
Yes,
Ava from South Africa here. Beautiful song. We'll be back in just a moment with more from Evelyn RAE. We'll hear a little bit more about Cauldron Pool and maybe even get into some news articles next. You're listening to The Telly. This is Waves by Ava. That is Ava with Waves. Gorgeous new single that we're hearing from this brand new artist from South Africa, and been turned on to this by the lovely Evelyn RAE. Evelyn, thank you so much. You've given us a gorgeous new song there.
Yeah, I love it. And there is whisper on the street that a new album is coming soon as well. As I said, I've spoken with Ava directly, and I am so excited to see what she comes up with next because I absolutely love her music. It's delightful.
That is fantastic. All right. Now, listen, you mentioned that you write for Cauldron Pool. The number one question that a lot of people have, who've never heard of Cauldron Pool, what the heck is a Cauldron Pool? Is it some sort of, witch website to do with cauldron supplies for boiling frogs? What is a Cauldron Pool?
I think you've hit the most common question asked because people think, how can a Christian conservative news outlet use Cauldron Pool as a name, but it's not actually spelt as the word cauldron, as in the witch, let's get the big spoon and mix up a potion. It's spelt the way that C.S. Lewis wrote Cauldron Pool in his series of Narnia. Yeah. And so that's where the name was inspired from. Ben, who created and who is the editor-in-chief of Cauldron Pool, loves Narnia. I think most of us authors who are at Cauldron Pool are absolutely in love with C.S. Lewis's literature and his work. So, you know, we all understood the reference pretty much straight away because we're hardcore fans of the man. But yeah, so it's just an amazing Christian conservative news website. It offers an alternative to the mainstream news, and it offers an alternative to people who are Christians and who would like to, you know, read the news in one hand with the Bible in the other hand.
Oh, love it.
And I think that's sort of the way that we operate here. We sort of watch and view the news through the lens of Christ. And I think Cauldron Pool does a really good job of that. And the reason why I love them so much is they're unapologetic in their stance on Christianity and their theology. You know, like all good things, there's persecution. Like all good things, you know, as Christ has said, pick up your cross and follow me. Before they hated me, they hated him. So like all things, like it gets backlash and people like to suggest that, you know, it's very far extreme Christianity, but we're all just everyday Christians who are trying to do our best to go through this wicked world that we're currently living in and trying to make sense of what is happening from that biblical perspective. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's one of the reasons why I've reached out to the team. Is it Ben who started it?
Yes.
Yeah, Ben and the team there, and have got in contact with you because I'm absolutely loving some of the perspectives that they've been putting out, including the the Moses statement, the Ezekiel declaration, and things like that. Getting everyday Christians around Australia and leaders to sign up and be part of a movement there. I absolutely love it. All right, well, let's do the classic. And this is hopefully going forward. This is what I'd love to do with you on the show, Evelyn, is to cross to the virtual newsroom, to you, and we can pretend that you're sitting there with all newspapers around you, ticker tape machines and everything like that around you, and I'd love to say, okay, what is making news on the website? What is trending on the website? What should we be paying attention to according to Cauldron Pool right now?
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. So something that I think is really important for listeners and viewers to sort of grab a hold of is, and what is trending on the site is your child can be vaccinated against COVID without the parental consent.
Ooh.
Now, I understand, and I'm not against vaccination at all by any means. None of us are at Cauldron Pool. We are very much for informed consent, pro-choice, and especially, parents being involved with minors. And unfortunately, something that we had to report on, and you can read the article there, it's all been referenced. The Victorian government has sent out a letter to schools, who have then sent out a letter to parents, basically saying that if your child is between the ages of 12 and 16, that they are able to make an appointment with the health practitioners that the schools can provide to get vaccinated. Now, when they go there to get vaccinated, they are able to do it without the parental consent because there is a law in Australia called the Gillick v. West Norfolk. And it's a case law that happened where basically a health practitioner can determine whether it's a mature minor. Wow. And if the minor is classified as mature, which means they understand the decision that they're making, and they can make the assessment as to the capacity and cognitive ability of the child. The child does not need consent as young as 12 to undergo these medical procedures. And the school is able to facilitate the appointment for the medical procedure, not only the appointment, they're able to actually administer the medical treatment, all without the parental consent and knowledge.
Wow.
So we touched on that. I think most of us who have common sense and logic can see the precedent that this sets and the danger. And, yeah, so that's something that we've touched on. As I said, the article is on Cauldronful, and you can go through and see the letter itself from the Victorian government. So it's right there in front of your eyes. This isn't, making a guess. It's written right there.
I think it's important, at least for parents, if you've got kids who are, teenagers or friends, in that world, I think it's important to go over there and check it out. And just, it enables you to be educated, to have a conversation with the kids and be able to chat to them there. That's a really important story. Give us, is there, I know you guys have got heaps of stories there. What else is making news?
Yeah, another one that I think is important is the fact that the roadmap that was just given to Australians moving forward through COVID is the fact that once 70% of the population are double dose vaccinated, they're able to do certain things in society. And one of those things is attend church. And only the vaccinated, double dose vaccinated people are able to attend church. So we've written an article about that, which explains the roadmap that the government has put forward, how they want to digress, how they want to move past the double dose vaccination. And I guess, we'll just deliver the fact. This is what the government has said. And I hope as a Christian and as a minister, an elder, a church member, somebody of faith who's reading this can just see the troublesome that closing the doors to certain members of society can cause. So we've touched on that, but I think, it's something that you don't need opinion on as we're writing it. I think as the reader, you can see where it's going. You can see the segregation that it's going to cause. And I'd hope as a Christian who is reading it, you might be, I guess, convicted or confronted, or at least be willing to have the conversation to discuss these really important matters of the church, because we're all going to be at that pointy end where we need to make a decision as a church and as a Christian, whether we agree with this or not, essentially.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is a really big one, and I've had so many people contact me, here on the telly with different stories and concerns around this area. So, it's something that we definitely need to be, educated on, but also, much like that last article, this is a great conversation starter for whether it's our small groups, our Bible studies, our church leaders, whatever congregation we're a part of, and whatever shape that is. I think it's a conversation that we need to have, because before we know it, if we're not prepared, it's going to be right there in our face. And, it's wherever you want to draw the line in the sand. I think it's a conversation we need to be having before we're forced in, over that line or around that line, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I think, there isn't enough conversation around it. I think at the moment, maybe the church is kind of just accepting what we're being told, instead of actually, as I said before, putting the Bible in one hand, reading the news in the other, and figuring out as Christians, what are we going to render to Caesar? What are we going to claim as Christ? Because the church does belong to Christ, not to Caesar. So does that complicate the interpretation and theological understanding of Romans 13 and some of the texts in Peter? And as you said, I know exactly where I stand with this, but it's something I can't force on other people. And I think at least reading these things and having the conversation with our church leaders, with our fellowship, is a really important thing, as you said, to have before we're put in a position where we can't have the conversation, where the decision has already been made for us.
Exactly.
So it's important, to sort of have these conversations and I guess keep each other accountable, and everything we do, we have to turn back to the Bible for the answers, as opposed to man.
Now, I want to ask you one, about a particular story, and I know it's one that you've been following closely yourself, especially with your background as a police officer for all those years. I'm based down here in Geelong. We've got plenty of listeners in Melbourne, and people who travel from Geelong to Melbourne for work. The scenes that we're seeing coming out of the unions and the police and the freedom protesters and the police, is just something that we would never imagine that we'd be seeing coming out of Australian, footage here. And, one side over here, if you follow these guys on YouTube, they're saying, the police are all, evil, they're attacking them and they're all innocent. The police are over here saying these awful, horrible rioters are coming against us and causing violence. The media is on top, throwing all this other stuff across it. It's so confusing to try to make sense of it all, Evelyn. As a former police officer, how do you look in on this, and what's your take on it all?
Yeah, I tweeted this. It was a really dark day in Australian history to see what, we saw coming out on the news and the scenes. And I stand by that. And I actually copped a lot of backlash for making that statement, because people were saying that it's actually a good day because the people are fighting back. But I'm actually just really sad and disheartened that we have got to this point in Australia. Like you said, the scenes that we are seeing is not the Australia that I grew up in, the Australia that I served for, the Australia that I understand and I know. And it's certainly not the Australia that I want my kids to grow up in. So I am very sad. I'm in a unique position because I have come from law enforcement, so I can understand the position that they are in. I understand that they're doing their job. I understand that they're following orders. I understand the complexities of the culture in the police and the hierarchy and the system that they have to follow. But in saying that, everything as a Christian and everything as somebody who prefers small government and it doesn't like the people being infringed upon, actually is disappointed in the police at the same time, because I think that, we took an oath, we swore to protect and to serve. And not only that, we swore to do that in good faith. And in good faith, in legal terms, you have to remember the original purpose for the law that you are using to enforce. And I'm not sure that the police are currently doing that. But, that's a really long discussion we could have. But basically, to be honest, I'm not sure that these protests are going to achieve what they want at this particular point in time. Now, why? Am I telling people they don't have a right to protest? Absolutely not. Everybody has a constitutional right to protest, and I'm all for that. But what I'm saying is thousands of people isn't going to cut it. At the moment, the government still outnumber us. So until there is, like what you see in Europe and France, those protests make noise. These protests, unfortunately, the media is going to spin it to make it out like it's violent when it's not, when it might just be a small group of people. But we have to be smart, I think, how we move forward. And we have to be mindful that the media and the politicians are against the people who want to fight for their freedom. So I think moving forward, maybe discernment and wisdom needs to be applied, and we need to figure out a way moving forward where we achieve what we want to achieve, which is our God-given inherited right of freedom back, and do it in a way that still honours God, and do it in a way that doesn't fall into their trap. Because at this point in time, I do feel we're falling into the trap. They want us to be violent. They want it to happen. But I'm angry at the politicians. What did they expect? What did they think was going to happen after 2 years' time? They've had a job this entire 2 years. They've been able to feed their families. They've been able to have a roof over their head. They've been able to pay for petrol for their car. A large number of Australians have not had that luxury for 2 years. And you can only poke the bear with a stick so many times before the bear bites back. And so I've said it, at some point in time, the rubber band is going to snap. They can't keep stretching the Australian people this far. And is that what we're seeing now? I hope and I pray that people who are watching the news can have a bit more compassion. We're supposed to be Christians, and there's so many Christians who are condemning what's going on. And I'd like to just remind people, don't condone the violence, but be compassionate and gracious and forgiving and understanding. These poor people are in their dire straits. A man jumped off a building yesterday in Victoria and killed himself when he was told he couldn't work anymore and had to go to his construction site and pick up his tools. That's what's happening over here. So we have to be mindful when we're watching the news that it's not like this has come out of nowhere. You know,
well said, Evelyn. You stir me with that, and I'm reminded. So many people will rightly argue that the church and Christians should be fighting for justice. We're, I think, part of our responsibility, as voices in the church, are to be a voice for those who need justice, for the injustices of the world. And whatever you think about whatever political stance or whatever you think about what's happening medically and everything else, we can lay that all to one side, and we can all agree that there's great injustices done for young people and for people who don't have a voice, and we should be standing for them.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right. I think we have a responsibility as Christians to speak the truth, even when it's hard, even when we're going to get persecuted, even when people that are supposed to love us are going to hate us, because Christ did that before us. He laid it all there. And I think we can do this. We can be righteously angry. Jesus flipped tables, and he was righteously angry. And I do believe we're on the cusp of being righteously angry at what is happening to us here in Australia. Yeah. And is this our moment where we flip tables? Is this our moment where we do get angry? Because there are so many injustices right now done to so many people. And the saddest part about these injustices is we're not allowed to talk about them. And that's the real danger. As I've said before, the absence of objectivity and debate is the language of the oppressor. And right now, we are not allowed to be objective about things. We're not allowed to discuss things and have debate and have conversations. We're banned from doing that. We are labelled with all these extremist terminologies if we even dare to speak about anything else. And that's the real tragedy that's coming out of this, the segregation, the division, how we're turning on each other. Yeah. And I think as Christians, we got to stop infighting. We got to stop doing this and come together in love. And, as it said in the Bible, love covers a multitude of sins. Yeah. And we're not more righteous than Christ. He forgave us. And I think, the church in particular and Christians in particular need to stop nitpicking and dividing and all at least have these honest conversations with each other.
I love it. Hey, Evelyn, thank you so much for your time this morning. You're an absolute star. I really appreciate the fact that you've jumped on here. I'll be in touch with you during the week, and I'm gonna put you on the spot and say, hope to have you here back here next week. But if Evelyn doesn't turn up next week, you know that she's just been very nice and she's gonna make an excuse and get out. Yeah, but I recommend that everyone connects with you. The easiest way to connect with you these days is at Cauldron Pool, or would you prefer people to go to social media?
Yeah, if they want to see my published works, my articles, the things that I write, go to Cauldron Pool. It's CALDRON, not Cauldron, the witch pot. .com. And you can go to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on all those things as well. If people want to talk to me, message me. I'm happy for people to reach out if you're having hard times. I'm more than happy to listen, to pray. I can be a voice for you. Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me on.
No problems at all. Evelyn, bless you. Thank you so much. Absolutely fantastic. Well, hopefully, tell us what you think. Do you want to hear Evelyn again and a bit of Cauldron Pool in the future? Let me know. I would love, I for one, am going to say yes, but I want to know what you think. Right now, this is in...